Washington's clear-thinking headquarters. The Morning Majority, 5 to 9 on 630 WMAL.
7:37 on WMAL. Brian Neiman, Michael Steele, former head of the RNC, former lieutenant governor in the House this morning.
Yeah, good to be here.
Pleased to be joined now by Tom Bevan, co-founder, executive editor of RealClearPolitics. Morning, Tom.
Good morning.
Hey, Tom.
We were talking just a few minutes ago about this poll. It's a Pew poll that said that 53% of Americans couldn't name really a single candidate in response to the question of, who are they most closely watching for the Republican Party. I was kind of surprised that would be, that high, especially considering the name recognition that Sarah Palin has. Were you surprised that it was that high?
A little bit. It's just one of those things. I mean, we follow this stuff so closely, day in and day out. We forget that sort of, that a lot of folks in the country don't follow it very closely at all. And so it's not surprising that they, wouldn't have heard perhaps that, Newt Gingrich might run or, and it's definitely not surprising that they wouldn't have heard of, Tim Pawlenty or some of the other folks that's in there. And I think that does, in fact, explain to a certain degree why Donald Trump is rising in the polls. I mean, when pollsters call someone up and present a list of names, that's the one that jumps out. They know something. They know who he is. They have an opinion about him. And so that's in part, I think, what's driving Trump's numbers right now.
But, Tom, I mean, when you look at the whole picture, though, I mean, in light of what you just said, I mean, just going back to Brian's point, I think you would think that at least one of these guys would have some level of traction at this point. What do you think is going on right now inside the GOP sort of cauldron of creating a presidential nominee, with folks kind of sitting on the sidelines, or are they planning this, sort of May surprise? And what do you think is going to happen there? Because it's a little bit quiet from that standpoint.
It is. I mean, Michael, you probably have a better insight into this than I would, but it's an interesting thing. I mean, there isn't a dominating front runner, obviously.
Right.
So,
do you think we'll have one?
What's that?
Do you think we'll have one?
I don't think so. I mean, I think this race is pretty wide open.
Mm-hmm.
I think you look at the early states, caucuses and primaries, and you can see multiple winners happening.
Yep.
You look at the the way the Republicans are going to conduct their nomination this year, and you can see it, dragging out for quite some time. So I actually do think it's going to be a very fascinating pitched battle where, we could have one, two, maybe even three candidates who last pretty well into the nominating process. But I mean, certainly some of these folks are going to fall away, and some of them might fall away pretty quickly once things heat up. But it's another thing. I think folks. One of the things is, I think in today's media environment, it's just so. I mean, the media coverage is so hot and so glaring,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of these folks, I think, are it's smart not to be out in front and be taking the brunt of all the heat. Given the way that the media operates these days.
But
I mean,
Trump seems to enjoy that.
Rise and fall pretty darn quickly these days.
Yeah, but hey, Tom, but Trump seems to enjoy that. He's like breathing off of that right now. That sort of taking the heat out in front, the combativeness with the press, and the Stephanopoulos interview, and all of that. He seems to relish in it, and his numbers are growing from it.
I agree. Yes, I mean, Trump's unique that way, I think, because he really just doesn't care.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, you look at this, and already we're starting to see these stories. Oh, he was for universal health care. He was,
right.
The pro-life, pro-choice questions, the questions about the fact that he, has called multiple presidents the worst presidents in history, including Republicans. You can already sort of get the sense that the sort of sand is shifting under his feet a little bit,
mm-hmm.
as people learn more about him and his past positions and whatnot. I can already see that Trump might be peaking as we speak, and it could be just as fast as he rose in the polls, he could fall away.
Well, here's the truth of the matter, is that, news shows are just like every other kind of show, whether it's Survivor or whether it's Grey's Anatomy. It's about ratings. And, Good Morning America and the Today Show and Hardball, whoever, wants to have Donald Trump on because he's good television. You know, he's super opinionated, and you know what? I'm sure they're not calling Tim Pawlenty to have him on the show every single morning. There's a reason for that, because, you know, Trump is a sexy person to have on the show right now, and he's controversial, and he says things, and it's good for ratings more than anything else. Let me ask you this about the other side, though, is the president's poll numbers are going south, and I believe Real Clear Politics, your average for disapproval has hit 50%. Is that a significant number to you?
I mean, I think it is to a certain degree. I mean, obviously, it's still a long way out, and things can change. But it is significant that you know, if you look at the trajectory of his poll numbers over time, I mean, it is the first time that he's hit the 50% disapproval mark since November 10th of last year. You know, his poll ratings went positive right after Gabby Giffords, that tragic incident where he sort of stepped up and gave this great speech and was lauded for it across the political spectrum. But just as soon as that happened, he gave his State of the Union address, excuse me, and his poll numbers started to go south again, and they've been sort of on that same trajectory now, and they finally flipped upside down for him. I do think it's a problem. I mean, you look at his handling of the deficit in some of these latest polls is atrocious. It's in the 30s. So some of the big issues that are out there right now, you know, he's on the wrong side of. Now the question, this debate is fully engaged right now between the president, Republicans, particularly Paul Ryan and his plan, and they're fighting over, you know, who's going to get the upper hand in framing this debate for the American people, because it is the defining issue of 2012. He's still got a chance to win that debate, and I think you'll see he's out there making that case right now. I think the problem with that is he's doing it in a way that is sort of at odds with the image that he projected in 2008. He was going to be this post-partisan uniter.
Right.
He was going to be, you know, the guy who you know, we're not going to fight the battles of the past. And here he is out, you know, yesterday and you know, a couple days ago, basically saying Republicans want to turn America into a third world country, sort of running them out of the party. And I don't know that is something that the public's going to have to decide whether they like the way he's you know, framing this debate, and whether it's at odds with his image and what he said his core promise was.
Hey, Tom, on that point though, you know, listening to you speak on this, what occurred to me was two things. One, within the GOP right now, our you know, potential candidates for the nomination are being trumped. When you think about it. And now, in light of what you just said about the president, his poll numbers, and his